Number one, we've seen evidence of, we've seen reporting on this memo of the Department of Justice putting out regarding the National Security Memo, Memo 7 that came out in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, September 11th. I believe it was signed the day after by President Trump. Now, new memo coming out in support of that, directing the JTTFs to prioritize domestic political extremism, domestic violence, and we're now also seeing the Harvard Kennedy School Institute of Politics says that while a strong majority of young Americans reject political violence, some see it as acceptable under certain circumstances, with 28% now of young Americans saying that political violence is acceptable when the government violates individual rights, acceptable when it promotes extreme beliefs, say it is acceptable when someone else encourages violence, or say it is acceptable when peaceful protests fail to accomplish their goals. So it seems like we're seeing this number, and I believe Gallup and YouGov have also put out similar polls saying that we're seeing a growing pile of evidence that this is on the upswing. Is that related to the memo? If you can tell us, and just in general, your thoughts on how the Civil Rights Division is responding to all of this.
Well, the memo is, a reaction to the actual terrorism that we've seen in this country. Number of violent threats, and President Trump has been shot at and shot, and of course our friend Charlie's murder. And so you see the Luigi situation and so many others, and this does not surprise me. There are a number of reasons. So first of all, there has been a trend of Marxism in our schools and in our colleges that has led to this anarchy and nihilism, and this belief that our fundamental principles are not important anymore. They don't even know about them. If you were to ask someone, what is the 13th Amendment? What does that guarantee? What is equal protection? What is the First Amendment? Like, people don't even learn anything relevant. They're presented with maps that don't show Israel on them. I mean, there are a lot of other crazy things happening in our schools. And then you have attacks on free speech. So a few years ago, I got concerned when I saw polls that showed that a lot of college students believe that it's okay to shout out or prevent other people from speaking if you don't agree with them. That's fundamentally at odds with the First Amendment, which is such an important part of our nation's founding. You have all of these kids who grew up in the last several years, didn't get to go to school for years, were kept at home in isolation, played video games, and violence is something theoretical to them, and they haven't really experienced it until they do it. They don't know what happens when you do it, and they don't have any particular respect for law enforcement. Law enforcement itself is not particularly present in many of our cities, and people think that there are no consequences for the use of violence to impose your political will on people who disagree with you.
What I'm reading in this, it's look, guys, it's no secret that we've been seeing the rise of political violence in the United States. I wrote an entire book about it last year. And when you write a book on the thesis of the rise of Marxism and the fact that we are in what I called at the time asymmetric civil warfare, or an irregular Marxist revolution, an irregular Marxist color revolution, that the question is, and look, we got so much flack for writing that book and saying that was coming out. Well, was it predictive? And unfortunately, it was.
The big point is this trend is not surprising. We've seen all the evidence. We've ignored Antifa. We've ignored a lack of respect for the First Amendment. We've allowed this type of violence to fester in our country. Law enforcement doesn't do enough in our cities. Prosecutors don't prosecute it. And this sort of lawlessness and anarchy and division, frankly, in our country is concerning. And certainly the DOJ is going to take a look at the law enforcement side of it. But all Americans need to work together to, I think, really agree that political violence is never acceptable in our country, whether you're right or whether you're left, and insist on that and enforce that norm.